My name is Lauren Luna. I'm a public affairs specialist here at NAWCTSD, and I'm joined today with Mr. John Meyers. In case you don't know, Mr. Meyers is our executive director, so that means he is the highest level civilian that we have at the command. Mr. Meyers has been here for quite some time. How many years have you been at NAWCTSD, Mr. Meyers?
This will be 9 years that
Wow.
I've been here. Yeah, almost double digits.
9 years. So I would venture to say he's almost an expert on anything TSD. But Mr. Meyers actually participated in something really amazing a couple of weeks ago. You may or may not have seen the interview that I did with Dr. Angela Lewis from NSWC Crane. So I'm kind of doing a follow-up with Mr. Meyers to see what he learned from his trip. So a couple of weeks ago, he job swapped with Dr. Lewis for an entire week. And then I'd like to ask you if you could speak a bit to what brought on that job swap, what prompted you to want to do that, because I kind of understand it was in the making for a little while before you were able to do it. And then what benefits does job swapping provide in your opinion?
Oh yeah, so there's a lot of questions in there. Hopefully I answer them all. So if you think about what NAWCTSD does well, we just in our Team Orlando ecosystem, we collaborate, right? That's kind of in our DNA. And same applies to our sister warfare centers, so we're not experts in ships, we're not experts in subs, we're not experts in aircraft, nor do we want to be. We're the experts in the science of learning. And so what we do is we partner with our sister warfare centers to, develop those training products in those specific areas that our partner warfare centers are subject matter experts in, to get the best training products out to the fleet to obviously, win the fight and bring our folks home safely. So I think that's really what prompted this. Is I've got a relationship with my counterpart at all the other labs and warfare centers. We do get together on a recurring basis to kind of synergize, talk about best practices and things. And I thought it would be a great opportunity to learn more about NSWC Crane and how we could partner. And so when I spoke with Dr. Lewis and Infosys and a few other events that we attended together, we started talking about NAVC and their culture of doing job swaps. And I said, I'd love to be able to do that. Let's see if we could plan something out for the two of us. So this was probably 6 to 8 months in the making. She came here, did a couple days shadow to kind of see, who's who and what she's really getting involved in. And then I did the same, so that when we truly job swapped, she was truly empowered to do my job and I was empowered to do hers. And so that I think was the real litmus test. Was it wasn't just sitting in a different seat for a week, but it was truly empowered to make decisions for each other's organization, which is a little scary if you think about it. So I know a lot of folks here were chomping at the bit to say, oh, I can't wait till she comes so I could make some real change real fast. But that's hopefully that gives you a picture of sort of how that brought about. But that doesn't mean we can't replicate that everywhere at all levels, at all positions, in all areas. I would love for everybody to kind of look at things from a different perspective. I think that's very healthy.
So from my counterpart, they call it corporate communications, but over here we call it public affairs. Shared that you had quite a busy visit. They had tons of pictures to share. Share what maybe a couple highlights in your opinion were.
Well, I could tell you the biggest highlight was every morning, right outside of the building that I was sitting in, they did colors. I know we do it every Thursday here, which I look forward to too. But that was very special. And then after one of the morning colors, they had an opportunity to do the oath of office for 48 new employees there at Crane. So that was very special to do that, right outside by the flag, right after colors. It really, to me, put things into perspective. And they're very similar to how we do our onboarding, where they had the supervisors there as well. And no sooner did we do the oath of office, and then the skipper was there as well to offer some words of encouragement. They teamed up with their supervisors, and then they went off to go in and start the official onboarding. So that to me was extremely powerful and really set the tone for the week.
So I wanted to ask about some best practice initiatives that you've brought that we do here currently at TSD, but you shared them with Crane.
Yeah, and I went through some of our high-level focus areas. The skipper, some of the all hands and other things were very much focused on what are those key areas that we touch the fleet, right? They really align to NAWCTSD and NAVAIR. And so we talked a lot about how we focus on speed. That's kind of our number one thing. How do we get those deliveries out to our customer as fast as we can? And so there were some best practices I shared with them in terms of how we look at those metrics from our PMT tool, from our WIP tool. We also dove into things like our capabilities where we have all of these ISIOs across the fleet and our touch points across the fleet, and how we measure ourselves on ensuring that all of our products and services are up and running 95% of the time or greater. And so we talked through how we do that, some of the best practices there, and a few other areas. But I think the key was just how we as a command were able to kind of distill a lot of high level stuff down to 2 or 3 or key areas and focus in on them to try and change behavior in the organization, that cultural change, if you will. And I think they were very excited about learning more. And there were some other pockets of things that we dove into that they'd like to, but from a big picture, that really resonated.
From my conversations with Dr. Lewis, it definitely seemed that they are actively working on a culture change, which is something that we're beginning to work on.
Yes.
Which is great. So I know that with COVID, it's definitely, I think everywhere you've seen a downturn and the challenges that it's presented now. Also being virtual like we are now is a lot different than being face to face, and benefits and values to both, but one doesn't completely replace the other. So I am looking forward to seeing. I know that I'm sure you're bringing some things back with you that you learned, and I'm really excited to hear about these, because I remember last when I think you did your couple of days over there to get a better picture. We were in the same position on the camera, and you're like, okay, just go with me here. I was in the bathroom and the stall seat journal, right? And I actually asked about this as well, and found out that it was a safety initiative. And I thought that was so creative. Right. But that's on my task list to get done by which I believe is Safety Month as nationally. So I just thought that was something really unique. And the comment you made to me was, what a cool place it must be to work at if that's the level of detail that you've thought about, in a place that maybe you're not thinking about reading something, but you have a captive audience.
Right.
And so I thought that was really cool. And that's obviously much smaller scale, even impactful. But I was just curious to hear some other things that maybe you're bringing back with you.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, think about the culture, right? To me, that's a fun place you want to work. So it's not just the folks who work there who are maybe using the facilities on a regular basis, but think about me as a outsider, as a visitor. I go to use the facilities and I'm seeing some awesome information, and I'm just like, wow, that kind of says something about the culture there. That they are highlighting some important things, kind of in a fun way, if you think about it. And I think we collectively, us, Crane, our sister workforce centers, we've got that, I'd say, same mission, is to make sure we provide products to bring our folks home safe. And that's a very real, tangible message. But adding some fun to it in sort of our day-to-day life was, I think, fantastic. And I think we do that pretty well here. But there's always these nuggets that, hey, maybe we should adopt that. That's kind of fun. So that was just a simple one that I think, as you said, when I came back, hey, maybe we should do that kind of stuff. It seems like you could make anything to do to make the place more fun is always a good thing. But I'd say the biggest nugget that I'm extremely excited about is their focus on strategy. I would say that every organization has its strengths and weaknesses. We are extremely strong in executing programs. I mean, that's kind of in our DNA. We tend to think in terms of this year and the fight up, this year, maybe the next 4 years. That's kind of what, we know our customers' budgets, and we're very much about executing programs, getting that 300 plus projects out the door, quick as possible, good quality. But what I feel are not as strong in, that Crane is extremely strong in, is that strategic long-term viewpoint, that 10, 20 years, think about 20 years from now, what are the customers that TSD are going to support? What kind of training products will we be providing to the future fleet or the fleet after the future fleet. Really struggling, I think, to get after that. So one of the key takeaways, and as a matter of fact, we just had a 2-day leadership offsite here at TSD, which is mimicked after Crane's 2-day offsites that they do every quarter to dive in to the strategic. So that to me is the most important and biggest nugget of best practices, really trying to harness how they do strategic thinking on a day-to-day basis and bring that back here. And what we started to discover on our journey now of trying to maybe implement this best practices, we feel very strongly that we have a lot of day-to-day tactical decisions. If we had a long-term view in any area, the day-to-day tactical decisions would be probably a lot easier for all of us collectively, not just at the leadership level, but all through the organization. That, if it's aligned to our long-term strategic plan, then it probably helps you make that decision one way or another, what you should do day to day, with just a viewpoint of, this week, this month, this year, in terms of trying to get these projects out the door. It's okay to be heads down and doing the blocking and tackling, but sometimes you got to, take a look and see the big picture of the long-term game. And that's what I'm really excited about in terms of pulling that best practice from Crane here to NAWCTSD.
Absolutely. If you know where you want to end up, like you said, you kind of, or I kind of equate it on a personal level, you think about where you want your career to be, right?
Yeah.
And you all about, well, age of retirement or right before I retire, this is where I want to be.
Right.
But it's no different than obviously NAWCTSD. Where do we want NAWCTSD to be 20, 30 years ahead? Because if you anticipate, you're empowered to make better decisions today, even on that, head down in the grind level that will then support that overall goal. So I think that that's going to be extremely helpful to all of us.
Yeah, and it gets to the culture. I mean, we have a very strong culture here at TSD in a very positive way. But how do we, continually improve on our culture, get to that viewpoint that, schedule is really important. And we got to not only meet our schedules, but make sure that our plan for our schedule, all that stuff that we're tracking the plan, that's those things are important. Also, the culture of our technical acumen, being a federal lab, a warfare center, we've got a strong sense to the technical community, as we should, because we're a federal lab. How do we continue to grow that culture and get into some areas technically now that we know 10, 15, 20 years from now are absolutely going to drive our future products? That's exciting.
It is exciting. I'm getting excited just talking about it. So I'm looking forward to, I know you guys have the offsite, so I'm looking things start trickle down to be shared with the workforce on how we can all work together to make these positive changes. And so the question I ended with Dr. Lewis, I'd also like to end with you, which is, would you say a challenge that both NSWC Crane and NAWCTSD are facing, and how do you feel that we could rise to meet that challenge?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say the Navy, actually DoD in general, is constantly faced of the rising costs of what we do, right? So if you think of the budget as a finite number, and you think about, I'd say, workforce costs, whether it's civilian workforce costs, CSS, military, that's a big chunk of the budget. And then the other chunk of the budget is, buying stuff for our warfighters, right? That's the two simple bins, and that's how our senior leads, whether military or civilian, in terms of DoD and even Congress looks at things, is, if we continue to rise our costs of the workforce, I mean, if we get more and more and more people, that just adds to that cost of doing business. And then we have less money to buy capability. There's a sweet spot, right? And over time, it feels as though there may be a lack of balance there. So the key to all the warfare centers is to keep that technical acumen and discipline and that cutting edge in your specific area, a science of learning, human performance, modeling and simulation. That's kind of our disciplines and area of expertise. How do we continue to refine that, grow that, and get more product out to the warfighter with maybe the same number of people? Maybe we can get more product, because our demand signal for products is not going down; it's actually going up. for more and more of what we do, which is great. So we have to constantly challenge ourselves. Our culture has to constantly be, focused on how do we get better at getting those products out faster. Is there a way to increase quality? I'd say we're very good in quality, but you can always improve. And then schedules. Is there a way to go faster? Again, our main priority for this command is speed, right? If we can go faster, maybe we could do it with less cost, because if we're going faster, you may not necessarily have to have that entire team working twice as long, maybe work half as long to get the same product out. So any of those efficiencies that we can gain, I think is key. And if you really look at us, I hate to compare us to a business, but quite frankly, we're not here for the profit. We're here to bring our warfighters home safely. But at the end of the day, our customers come to us because of the value we bring, and a lot of our customers say, "Hey, we want it as cheap as possible, as fast as possible." And so we got to constantly be looking at that balance, because it could be, if we get too expensive, no matter, pick your warfare center or your military service, then we're either going to be out of business, or we're just not going to be able to compete with our competitors. And I can tell you now that our competitors are investing a lot more dollars in things than we are. So our advantage is really on how to outthink. And if you think about our sweet spot, that human performance, maybe I'm biased, but I think we're the most important warfare center of all of them, because we're going to be the ones to really help all the other warfare centers get to that point where that human performance, how we outthink the competitor, because the budgets, you can see, are not getting any bigger. But that's a NAWCTSD, NAWC-AD, NAVAIR, Navy, DoD problem. But I think we're doggone good at it. And I think with some of the strategic stuff, these best practices from Crane, we're just going to just get even better and take it to the next level. That's just kind of how I view the world.
Absolutely. I feel like it's also having the ability to be agile and try new things.
Yeah.
I know it can be difficult. I'm very new to the federal system, only 9 months in, but I do think that there's something special to being willing to try and fail. And I know that as a leadership command, you guys have really touched on the importance with the new This Is the Way award and some other that we're doing to reward people who made calculated measures that maybe didn't pay off.
Yeah.
Because I feel like that brings about a culture of, okay, well, I'm willing to give it a try. It may not pan out this time, but it might next time, or at least now I know it isn't the best way to do it. Versus maybe the process that takes a lot longer. That's the way it's always been done. So I do think that there's something special to, as an individual in this field, no matter if you work in PAO or down in a lab, being willing to step outside your comfort zone and try new things. It's like Crane is really working on that. And then the one thing I saw that I really liked that I want to bring to TSD that is in my PAO capabilities is they have their little command card. She was showing it to me in the interview, and it's basically their principles on it, and they keep it in their badge. And I think that there's something to be said for having that physical reminder, but also being able to look at it and kind of check yourself and make sure that what you're doing is supporting, because we are here to have a job and get paid and have a livelihood, right? But we're also something so much bigger that you touched on, which is bringing fighters home safely. And that to me is extremely rewarding. And it is hard. I think only having 40 uniformed military at our base and so many civilians, we don't, it's not SES Jacks or other places where you get to see the effect that you're having on the fleet right away, because we're a little bit more removed. But when I do hear those stories, it is makes me feel extra proud of what we're doing, even in my part as PAO, which, maybe is not directly impactful as someone building a trainer, but I think that there's pride to be taken in that. And I feel like that can kind of fuel through some of these challenges we may have, whether it's staffing or feeling like, locality pay isn't where it should be, or things like, because like you said, the budget is what it is. And it's, there's that sweet spot, but then if you have to go one way or the other, we're talking about lack of actual goods for uniformed members. Obviously we have to help find that sweet spot, and I always equate it to doing our part to help that. So make, conscious decisions to help with that. Because I feel like if we all took personal ownership, it could only help, right? Can't hurt. So appreciate your time. I feel like
Yeah.
I've learned so much, and I hope that our workforce has learned a lot as well.
Yeah.
Have things to take away and maybe some ideas that they can move forward with.
And I would like to challenge everybody to uh, try and find someone you could do a job swap with. We could do that internal to command. If you're in one department, maybe you want to learn more about another. And I think it's healthy to kind of cross-pollinate and get just a different perspective. I don't see why we can't do that on a regular basis. I know the challenge for some of us would be, like myself, I would figure out travel costs, right? So when I'm not physically there, but we have ways to do that too. We have S&T dollars, nice budgets, pay for workforce development efforts. We have unfunded. Everybody has a supervisor who has a training budget. And so I would highly recommend it. Whoever you are, wherever job you're doing, you could definitely benefit from, stepping outside your comfort zone, maybe learning a new area that then you could bring back to the job you're doing. And then we all win, right?
Absolutely.
So, but no, thanks for the opportunity for sitting down and doing the interview, and looking forward for the next one. I think this may turn into maybe a yearly thing, and maybe over time I'll do a rotation with all 16 warfare centers and maybe more. Who knows? So
That was wonderful. I think there's so much to learn from that. Thank
absolutely.
you much for your time today, Mr. Myers. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.
All right. Thank you, Lauren. Keep up the great work. Take care.
Thank you.